Greetings. What is up? Be that Sequential Geek. Welcome to my channel, Sequential Geek. This week haul number 69, part 10. Let's get on with the haul, y'all, shall we? Collectible keys with this title. So, I like to read vampire comics. I like collecting James O'Barr art, especially if he's on some cover, something. Get doubles of it. I like my newsstand edition, VF or better, Dark Horse Boba Fett comics, as well as my newsstand new Marvel comics, right? That era from 2000, 2004, give or take a year. I love my indie comics, but I do love my newsstands, high quality VF, and that's what I'm after here, are Copper Age Avengers. In particular, I wanted to match the direct editions that I bought originally. From the first time I read comics, 79, 89, they were my comic book shop buys. They're all direct editions, so I want to get some high-grade newsstands because all that stuff was much loved and well-read and beat to shit. So, buy low, sell high, right? Nobody's looking at the Copper Age. I think most people just know about Chris Claremont. There's people like David Michelini. It's a great name, great writer out of the 80s. I also am going to stress Roger Stern. And, the gimmick started in the late 80s. And, everything was all about first issue. And all of a sudden, everybody was a mutant. Here's some honorable mentions this reminds me of. I bought these last year. So I'm going to show some comics that I bought past a couple months. And these comics are all written by Roger Stern. Roger Stern started writing the Avengers with issue 227, yeah, when Captain Marvel joined the Avengers. Sal Buscema did the art, and then from issue 228 till 250 is when Al Milgrom, the artist you're looking at here, did the art in the Avengers. Bob Harris did the art from 251 to 254. If you're limited on funds and you just want to get, quote unquote, the rest of them later, then yeah, these comics, keep an eye out for these. I suggest getting Newsstand 1984 and later. I understand at the Malachi Comics website from Chuck Rosansky's data, it's like a 50 ratio direct to newsstands. Newsstands are the barcodes here. It allows not the comic shop, the grocery store, the drugstore, store that bought the comics, but they don't want to keep them, right? So you cut the titles off, send them back. They scan the barcode and give you your money back. Comic book shops started popping up in the early 80s. I was seeing ads for comic book shops, like in the news, were covering stories about how comics were becoming valuable by 1982. So people were bagging their stuff and buying stuff from comic book shops by 84 when Marvel Superhero Secret Wars came out, written by Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter has been the editor-in-chief of Marvel since the late 70s, and he's the editor-in-chief of all these comics that I'm going to be talking about. It's important to point out Jim Shooter because I think a lot of the success of these writers, like, of course, Claremont, Michelini, Roger Stern, wouldn't have happened unless it was supported by somebody who knew how to respect the concept of a character mythology. When you invest into the history of a character, when you build upon it, you're showing readers that previous generations are gaining some payback from their investment. Consider it an emotional payback, a fan payback, a sense of satisfaction, gratification, because you're watching something grow as you grow as a human being, as an individual, when you start reading this stuff as a kid or an adolescent. Whatever point in your life, as you're reading, as you live on, you watch these characters live on. Thankfully, people like Roger Stern had Jim Shooter that would help them weave together subplots, little threads, little breadcrumbs that they would leave that would mature into main story arcs. So you would see an appearance of some character or something that was related to the Avengers in a Spider-Man comic, then you'd find out later what was going on, or you'd see some panel in the X-Men where uh, uh, you're going to cut to maybe Lilandra warning Reed Richards that he shouldn't have saved Galactus. Something that little panels here and there that are somewhat subtle, not exactly in your face, but as you pay attention to the history, even the short-sighted history, there's a payoff. And Roger Stern was good with that. Once again, it gave your interest, your fandom, a payoff. So here's some issues here that are more like standalone. Issue 232, Star Fox joins the Avengers. That's from June 1983. 83, that's like a 50%, right? Like I said before, the ratio was 50% direct edition to newsstand by 85, 86, but then people were buying doubles by 84. They were bagging and boarding their stuff by 1984. So you find a newsstand 82 and earlier, it's not going to be as rare as a direct edition, right? Those little thin plastic sleeves that had 3 or 4 comics in them with a slash through the barcode, because you bought them together as a packet. The store could not return them, right? So they had a slash through them. When the comic book shop came into existence, it was to save the comic book market. Marvel got the license for Star Wars. They were trying to expand the market into a means that would allow them to sell some comics without having to worry about comics being returned, and then comic sellers finding loopholes in how they can say stuff is returned when it's not really, or just a lot of racketeering going on with people taking advantage of that whole returnability factor with these barcodes. So the barcodes started getting phased out by the second half of the 80s. So you find something with a barcode on it and it's very fine or better, definitely buy it. For me, though, since everybody was bagging and boarding all their direct editions and stuff like that by 1980, end of 83, definitely by 84, I don't think direct editions are going to be all that rare to find in high quality. That's why, even though newsstands were more prevalent in the early 80s, they were getting beat up, though. They were in those turn racks. They were in drugstores, grocery stores, stuff where people would pull them out of the rack and then just jam them in real fast. They were also taken on road trips. They were bought in circles where people weren't comic collectors. They would just read stuff and throw it out or lend it to somebody, and it would get beat up, torn up. It would get much loved. So to find something like these that are from 1983, this one's from January of 84 cover date, which really means then that it's like probably November 1983. So 83, for me, it really doesn't matter so much if it's a newsstand or a direct. Just get it in very fine or better, and these are all high-grade quality comics. Buy low, sell high. People aren't paying attention to these Copper Age books today. Worst case scenario, break even. Once again, because they are Copper Age, high print run, so be picky about the condition. Let me just continue back on track. These are my honorable mentions. The comics that I'm about to show you are the stuff I've been buying for about the past 2 months. Started off me trying to get my newsstand copies of Avengers Under Siege. But, things started to expand. I wanted to show off some collectible keys like Avengers 232, Star Fox joining. Avengers 236 and 237 is a Spider-Man story. And, Spider-Man did not join the Avengers at the end of issue 237. If it was written by fans, if it was like some type of modern day comic book writer, yeah, he probably would have joined the Avengers. Or if it was something to do with Disney buying Marvel, like in 2005, around that time when Bendis was writing New Avengers, Bendis kicked ass. I mean, in Alias and the first couple of years at Daredevil, especially his stuff with Alex Maleev. But by the time he was working with New Avengers, he was a company man. He was just going to do whatever they told him to do. And stuff that doesn't make sense, like Spider-Man joining the Avengers, he's a solo hero. It's validated right here, and it made sense in issue 237 236 is the first part of the story. It's more of the collectible issue. You got Spider-Man front and center, even though I find that cover to be very basic. It's almost like Al Milgrom, the artist here, it's almost like he just had hinges on the joints of all his drawings. He just sort of positioned them in a way that would look exciting. It's almost like those are each individual images too, and they just put them together on that. Totally unrelated images, and that is even similar to that image right there. I don't know what the heck is going on, why they have that lack of style, but see, there was a lot of quality suffering at the cost of a lot of quantity by the late 80s. So where this is going, though, it's to a great place. I mean, the story that it happens 273 to 277 with that Under Siege run, especially it's later on down the line with the Avengers. We're talking around, end of 86, beginning of 87. Things weren't looking good. You had Jim Shooter being told by the powers that be to bank off of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. So then he had a part 2 to finish off his era. Jim Shooter, he was editor-in-chief until Avengers 284, and then Tom DeFalco took over as editor-in-chief. And then here we got 232 with Star Fox joining, issue 236, the first of a 2-issue series with Spider-Man, and then Assistant Editors Month. This is a collectible Avengers issue. I was big into Letterman at the time, and he's definitely quintessential Copper Age. He's definitely a great icon of the 80s. So Assistant Editors Month, right? They got the heads there on backwards. It's an assistant editor. It's total camp fun. At the time, I didn't know what the hell they were doing. I was, adolescent, teenager. So, yeah, at that time, I really wasn't keeping up on when comics came out or who was what writer, who was what artist. So I was just more about, is it fun to read? So I wasn't into the assistant editor month stuff. It was cool to see Letterman in the comic, though. It was cool to see Spider-Man in there, but, Spider-Man joining, it would have been a letdown. And it was cool how they ended it. It was fun. He was there. He's like, no, I do my own thing. And then he bailed. So I got these 3 just in the past year. Let's start off with these comics that I got. Some Avengers goodness, not Roger Stern, though. These are written by Jim Shooter. Issue 215 and 216. So this is January 1982, and this is February 1982. It's a 2-part Miracle Man story. Miracle Man appears in the Avengers in issues 215, 216, and then issue 266, which is the epilogue. You find out how the origin of Miracle Man. You find out how the origin of Molecule Man dates back to Fantastic Four issue 20, and there was some experiments that were going on at some atomic power plant, and there was a blast that occurred, and that's how Molecule Man gained his powers. Reese. Is it Owen Reese? I think it's Owen. And Reese ends up, I'm just going to say Reese because I'm not sure on the first name. Reese ends up manifesting his powers, utilizing his powers through this wand. And he cannot affect organic matter in his original appearance in Fantastic Four 20. As a result, then, the Fantastic Four have themselves covered with plaster so that the Molecule Man will try and destroy the statues of themselves, not knowing that their organic matter is inside these statues. It catches him off guard. So Uatu, the Watcher, ends up placing Owen Reese, Molecule Man, in some type of other dimension where time is faster, assuming that he would then age out and die. What happens is that, as eventually this is revealed in some other comics, This other dimension, he does, as he's aging, he learns how to use technology, advanced technology, invent technology, and he figures out a way to clone himself. He duplicates himself, creates this other person he calls his son. So he ends up aging out, dying. His son, son of Molecule Man, ends up using this wand that Molecule Man had created. He uses it to manifest his powers again. This is really just Molecule Man creating a copy of himself. And this son of Molecule Man, with the wand, unlike Molecule Man, he's able to also manipulate organic matter. He ends up in Florida, in the Everglades, entering Earth through this nexus of all realities. This is info I got from Comic Vine. It says he battled the Man-Thing and the Thing. He turned them back to their original forms of Ben Grimm and Ted Sallis. And they wouldn't let up, so he changes them back, Ted Sallis into Man-Thing, Ben Grimm back into the Thing. The Thing knocks the wand out of this son of Molecule Man's hand, and his other dimension that he originated from had a faster pace of time, so he ended up aging out, immediately turning into dust, decaying away, dying. The wand did not affect Thing, but it turns out if anybody tries to use Molecule Man's wand, his consciousness would take over that person's mind and eventually more pervert their body, kind of deform it, than actually turn it into him. Weird storylines ensue, and then eventually, weird storylines in other comics, but eventually the Silver Surfer finds this wand, and the wand doesn't affect Silver Surfer. He doesn't turn into Molecule Man, but because it doesn't affect him, the wand then manifests Molecule Man. It creates Molecule Man. They have a discussion. Molecule Man learns Silver Surfer's origin story. He gets enthralled, captivated by this idea of Galactus. So he decides to devour the Earth. Yeah, as a result of all his powers, or I don't know what the deal is with Molecule Man, but he's nuts. Yeah, he ends up using Tigra as his pet. Because what happens is the Silver Surfer's board goes to contact the Fantastic Four. They aren't in. That's not sure where they're at, actually, in this storyline. Story is by Jim Shooter. And the art is by Alan Weiss. Weiss. So here we have the Molecule Man coming to life, since the wand didn't affect Silver Surfer. And this manifestation of Molecule Man, he can affect both inorganic and organic matter. I don't know what the deal is with that crown he gives himself. Looks pretty dorky, but I think that's what it's for. I think eventually Tigra ends up calling him like a nerd or a dork or something and takes him off. He loses it. Nice. He destroys... There we go. Right there. He destroys Thor's hammer. Iron Man's armor, Silver Surfer's board, and Captain America's shield. He recreates them in the next issue. This is a 2-issue story arc. But he's not able to recreate Tony Stark's armor. Too complicated for him, he explains. Yeah, unfortunately, in this issue, you would think that Molecule Man would be making Tigra his playmate. Shout out to Comic Crypt of Castle Hills. A couple weeks ago, he has a video called My Favorite Playmates. For real, but no. She asks him, what are you going to do with me? She's like, am I going to be your mate? And he's like, wait. He's like, no. He says, yes, sir. What does he say here? Mom always warned me against, and he says, ... that. And she was right. He continues, you could be my friend and make that my pet. Yeesh. Hey, at least they gave him, Volcana in 1984? Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. And this is written by Jim Shooter. So at least Jim Shooter followed up. Gave him somebody. And they were a really cool couple, I gotta say. When they showed them, even though I'm not crazy about Secret Wars 2, it was cool to see them as a couple. Because this guy, he loses his mind. I think the Molecule Man powers just make him nuts. And that's how this ends. He agrees to get therapy. She had to give in to become his pet. And she's tripping on how she had succumbed so easily, according to her. But the guy could do whatever he wants. So she's tripping out on the fact that she's become this guy's pet while the other Avengers got beaten by him. Tell you though, Alan Weiss's art is, I think it's pretty fantastic. Okay, here's where he has like a breakdown, gets humiliated by them. He's recreating all their items and he just can't complete Tony Stark's armor, so he just gives him this basic suit to deal with. There's Jim Shooter right there, no? So Miracle Man appears in the Avengers in issues 215 and 216 right here. His first appearance is in Fantastic Four, number 20. And you find out in issue 266, his next appearance in the Avengers, which is like the denouement of Secret Wars 2, how the creation of Molecule Man, this experiment at it's like an atomic power plant, nuclear power plant, or some experiment that was going on with atomic energy, and an explosion occurred, and as a result, this guy, Owen Reese, becomes Molecule Man. The explosion had opened up a gateway to another dimension, a sliver of space-time. And the Beyonder observes our universe, or the 616 Marvel universe, and by 1984, the Beyonder creates this battle world. Marvel Superhero Secret Wars ensues. Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, written by Jim Shooter. This is a Jim Shooter story. Avengers 215 and 216. So let's get into some Roger Stern. Like I said, Roger Stern started writing the Avengers in issue 227. Even though you got Roger Stern starting with issue 227 that had Sal Buscema doing the art, you had my man Al Milgrom doing the art from issue 228 until 250. 251 to 254 was Bob Hall. That's right. And then in 255, Roger Stern, that one issue, 227, Captain Marvel joined. Roger Stern started his run. 255, this is when John Buscema came on board with Tom Palmer doing the inks until issue number 287. Roger Stern departed. Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief of Marvel until October of 1987, that issue of Avengers 284. And then Jim Shooter went his ways. I mean, you know, he had that success with Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, and I think the powers that be, the publishers or investors over at Marvel, wanted him to follow up with another Secret Wars story. And, you know, it's such a bummer that Jim Shooter had to end his era with that Secret Wars 2. But on a positive note, you've got Roger Stern and John Buscema on the Avengers. This one right here has the cover painted by the inker, Tom Palmer. Right there, see his name if you can. And you know, like, I didn't read, you know, comics, keep up with like when they first came out or what artist was what, but I did like the Avengers because as someone with fair skin and, you know, fair haired, like that reddish hair, you know, seeing Captain America, Thor, even the man here, Star Fox, Hawkeye, Hank Pym, just, you know, some people that looked like me, but they weren't in their face about it. And I really don't think that was any of the motivation at all about why they were in the story, was their looks. But I did steer my interest more on spending money on them. Seeing everything on TV with only protagonists that were either, you know, some type of Mediterranean looking person, like Southern European. And that was really the only acceptable form of way to look, is either like Jewish or Italian, I guess you could say. And it was cool to see a group of heroes that did kind of look like me. Not all of them, but just thought it was cool. So it's one of the reasons why I read the Avengers. And it was just cool to see like another team that, to me, it was different because I grew up watching Super Friends. So, you know, meanwhile, and then, you know, the whole Legion of Doom after that. So for me, the Avengers was something different, even though it was like a big 2-book. It's cool like that. Something that I got into was like my own. And another thing I'd like to note as far as the Avengers during the Copper Age is that this Captain Marvel right here is my Captain Marvel. Like, this is the Captain Marvel that I know. You know, and Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, she never really had much presence. First she was Air Force, and then I think she ran a fashion magazine, and then she was kind of touch and go as far as my experience in the Avengers. She was never treated much as a primary character. She's never really written all that interesting. For me, Monica Rambeau, I mean, she captured my interest in Amazing Spider-Man 16, that annual, that black bikini. I think it was John Romita Jr. doing the art. That captured my eye. But just the whole, like, being able to turn herself into any type of form of energy. was something new. It was a unique power. It happened by accident. It was some random scientific event. At least they didn't make her a mutant. And that was another attraction with the Avengers, was just the whole spec bubble first issue, and then everybody becoming a mutant, and Cloak and Dagger being called mutants. Namor in that Marvel Saga comic was begun to be referred to as a mutant. And it just was so obvious. A marketing gambit. It was so obvious, like an advertising technique. A brand identity, right, is the key term these days. So that's how Marvel wanted to identify themselves as first issue, and everybody's a mutant by the late 80s. And I got this because this comic is the first issue of the Roger Stern, John Buscema run. And it's a cool painting of Captain Marvel by the inker Tom Palmer. It was just cool seeing her learn, going through a learning process, because as a reader, somebody that would always want to join the Avengers, it's cool seeing somebody that is as powerful as her, but still acting new. Like the reader that would want to know what it's like to be new joining the Avengers, right? It's so, like a year earlier in Spider-Man 270, he had done some beatdown on Fire Lord there because of his symbiote that enhanced his powers. So Avengers 257 is the first appearance of Nebula. And then 258, you got your Fire Lord appearance. And the story concludes with issue 260 right here. Assault on Sanctuary, featuring the stunning secret of Nebula. $261, I got this just to fill, because I wasn't really going to get that one. It's a Secret Wars 2 tie-in, but it's just one issue. I found it in the long box next to this one. Also a high grade, very fine. Plus, if not near mint, in my opinion. Copy of issue 262. When Titans Tussle, Hercules versus Submariner. Yeah, this John Buscema artwork, at first I wasn't crazy about it because I thought it was just very generic. But then after reading just one issue, this Tom Palmer inks really reminded me of a lot of just classic comic book goodness. Also, facial expressions, showing emotion, different body types. I thought that John Buscema pulled it off really well, and then just being able to pull off consistent anatomy from different angles above, just different shots that weren't plain generic. I was impressed, and it grew on me. So, Avengers issue 262. Here is January 1986. Avengers issue number 263. Isn't it something like this is the original Jean Grey right here that's underwater? Some early appearance. They retconned the history of Jean Grey with this issue. I think isn't this like Jean Grey from like X-Men 94, 95. So Jean Grey had burst through the water and was the Phoenix, but then I guess the Phoenix had made a copy of her body, and this was the original Jean Grey. I don't know, man. Somebody let me know. But I know that this cocoon that they find is supposed to be the original Jean Grey. And then I think like the Phoenix Force, the Phoenix entity had made a copy of Jean Grey. So we got a copy of Jean Grey that's made by the Phoenix Force. Then we got a copy of Jean Grey that's made by Mr. Sinister. And then this one here underwater is the original Jean Grey. They got left there by the Phoenix Force or something that I think the Phoenix Force had left her in that cocoon way back, like I said, like Avengers 94, 95, some super early appearance of when Jean Grey was becoming the Phoenix, and she like burst out of the water. It's the first display of her using the Phoenix Force. So that was just the Phoenix copying her, cloning her. help me out on that. I'm not going to go look up and research on that because I'm not that big of a geek on that Jean Grey history, Phoenix Force history. So somebody clue me in on that. 264, the first appearance of the New Yellow Jacket, Rita Demara. Anita Hill, Colby Smothers. Doesn't that look like Colby Smothers? Doesn't that look like Colby Smothers? First appearance of Colby Smothers is Yellow Jacket. Newsstand. Just got this because I had issue 264. Issue 265. Issue 266 is the next time you see Molecule Man in an Avengers comic from 215, 216. Because there's a connection, like I explained before, of how the creation of Molecule Man also led to the creation of this, opening, this tear in the fabric of reality that opened up a gateway for the Beyonder to notice the Marvel 616 universe, to notice the heroes. So eventually, ever since Molecule Man's first appearance in Fantastic 420, which also had a letter from George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones writer, right, in that issue. But the creation of Molecule Man opened up this gateway, and then the Beyonder was checking out Earth for all these years, and then created Battle World. And Jim Shooter decided to write Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. Avengers 267, 268, 269 is the King Immortus tie-in. Avengers 270, now Namor's kicked out of the Avengers. Some fallout with him. You've got people protesting him being kicked out of the Avengers, like vets from World War II, because of his involvement in the Invaders, fighting alongside Cap and the original Human Torch and Toro. We also got, I think, Moonstone escapes from jail in this issue. And that's what you got. You got Zemo. He's like super manipulative. This is one of the greatest things about Roger Stern, because, this is Roger Stern, right? Roger Stern is Zemo. Super manipulative. Must be a real mean guy. Likes to use people. Likes to put computer chip in his headband and control other people. Right? Just like Zemo. Zemo will manipulate the fuck out of you. He'll create incidences just to piss people off, so that he can keep people off balance to maintain his authority. Really, Zemo was written just maniacal, manipulative motherfucker. So here we got Grey Gargoyle, right? And Screaming Mimi freeing the New Yellow Jacket. They're trying to gather a bunch of villains together. Zemo's thing is numbers. He wants to overpower the Avengers. Look at Screaming Mimi right there. Hercules arm wrestling. Yeah, Zemo totally pushes his buttons later on. He gets kicked out of the Avengers. Also, there's a civil war that's going on. So here's Avengers 271. So now we've got, some stuff that's leading up to Avengers Under Siege that takes place in Avengers issues 273 to 277. Atuma started his civil war trying to take over Atlantis. So the Avengers team up with Alpha Flight to help out Namor. He's out. So now he's out of the Avengers, which leaves Zemo having to deal with Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, as well as Hercules. I think those are the two powerhouses. So we got the 25th anniversary cover right there. These were pricey. I mean, like, these comics were anywhere from $2 to $8 a piece. '25th anniversary. All the covers that month had that particular border, that same border, some type of portrait. I think the Spectacular Spider-Man 25th anniversary issue, that cover had a portrait of Spider-Man by Steve Ditko. This cover is by the inker again, Tom Palmer. November 1986. Zemo tries to pressure Moonstone when he's just alone in the lab with her. They've got Blackout. And Blackout is just this guy. Zemo had, or actually, Moonstone had Zemo's goons go into Project Pegasus and steal Blackout. Blackout is this guy. He's similar to the Shroud, where he can control this dark energy from the dark dimension. And Zemo's and Moonstone have plans for Blackout. They're going to use him to overpower Captain Marvel and then have him enclose the mansion in one of his, what do you want to call it, dark energy force fields. So this starts off with Zemo having the Wrecker from the Wrecking Crew be plainclothes at this bar where he triggers Hercules right here to get all pissed off. He's like, but she still tells you what to do. Because he's pissing Hercules off. He's triggering Hercules. Because he's saying how Hercules is subservient to a woman, as the Wasp is the leader of the Avengers. Hercules is supposed to be on duty with Jarvis, working their operations center as an operator, right? Responding to all the alarms and alerts. See, Zemo, his father, like Heinrich Hohenglauffenstein, got killed by Captain America, and their whole family blamed the disgrace and failures of their family line on Captain America killing this guy, Zemo's father. So Zemo wants to create revenge, but he wants to do it by humiliating Captain America, just as his family line got humiliated by Captain America killing his father, Heinrich Guggenstein back in the day. So here's Captain Marvel, right? She can just go anywhere she wants. Pure energy. Cool as shit. Blackout. See, Moonstone had Zemo's men steal Blackout from Project Pegasus, and his powers leave him pretty much catatonic. Open to suggestion. At worst, he's catatonic. At best, he's like just only responsive to what he's told to do. And Zemo has the Fixer put a chip in his little headband crown deal that allows him to control Blackout. Moonstone thinks that since she's got Blackout under her manipulations, under her control, she's calling him their defense system. After they take the mansion, they'll use Blackout to put up a force field and take out Captain Marvel. So she's got the know-how. She's got all these leadership, these plans. So to throw it off, Zemo ends up having Hyde get pissed off at the Wrecking Crew. He's like, I'll take all you motherfuckers on. And she tries to de-escalate the situation. And you find out, she doesn't do it successfully. Zemo, right there, he's got a trank. He's got a tranquilizer. He got one of those gimmicks out of a comic book and then weaponized it. Those things that you put on your hand, it makes a buzzing noise when you shake people's hand, give them a shock. He weaponized it, put a trank on it, and he was able to trank out Mr. Hyde. He's such a fearsome, gruesome psychopath. Look at this Hyde image right there. That design. Look at that Hyde. That is so cool. Festering away. So yeah, he got tranked. And so then, you know, Zemo, he's always manipulating the scene. He's making himself look like a leader and making Moonstone looking incapable, inferior. So, and then also, you know, he's dividing and conquering. So while Hercules is being distracted at that bar, we've got the Black Knight. Check out what a fox they got the Wasp done up as. That photographer there, he's like, that size looks mighty good to us too, man. Right there. All right. So she's walking the red carpet. Social media in real time. She's with the Black Knight. So they're away. Check out this scene right here. So he's just, you know, psyching up the troops. You know, his tech side of his team is the Fixer and then Yellow Jacket. I think you got Moonstone. She's like another leader, manipulator. But the rest of these guys are just brute force, strength-based attacks. Is that Titania right there? The Absorbing Man. Her lover. They're a couple. Oh, yeah. They're ready to smash. Those facial expressions right there. So he's psyching them up, telling them about their superior numbers. They're going to kick ass. And she questions Zemo. She's like, y'all don't have any powers. He's like, she's like, who the fuck are you? He's powerless. He doesn't have any powers. Why should they follow him? And that's when he reveals that he's got that chip that the Fixer had set up for him in his crown, or headband, whatever, that allows him to control Blackout. Keep wanting to call him Black Blob. Blackout. And he tells Blackout to tell her, put her in her place. And then they attack the mansion. Hercules is away. At this point, Zemo also hired some model, codename Black Mamba, to drug Hercules. So, you know, the defense systems kick in. Hercules is away. Zemo's got this divide and conquer strategy. But they managed to clean everything up. Yeah, Jarvis is alone, so he's fucked. So next issue, check it out. So they end up cleaning everything up. Yep. So that when the Black Knight and Hercules return, they can't tell. Issue 274. Had to tape up the side here. A lot of this stuff, the whole slide gets slit open. They package it. Hercules' last stand. So he ends up comatose at the end of this issue. The writer, Roger Stern, said that he wanted to see Hercules surrounded by a bunch of Kirby villains. Right, so Black Knight's the first person that comes back to the mansion. Obviously, he has no idea what's going on because they cleaned up everything. No signs of the mansion being attacked. For some reason, he doesn't notice. Check out that attack right there, right through the wall. Man down. Yellow Jacket. This new one, she's not a total psychopath. She stops Hyde from killing him. colorful group of villains here. So Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, she gets this fake distress call to somebody pretending they're the Wasp. And so she shows up to investigate and finds out she just stepped into a trap. So Blackout neutralizes her, and she gets engulfed in this dark energy and gets taken away into that dark dimension. It's the same dimension that Cloak and the Shroud tap into. Jarvis's days are numbered. So Captain America notices that there's a discrepancy going on because he gets some distress signal, or he called the mansion and noticed it was the Wasp's voice on the line when she should be out on vacation. So he lets her know that there's something going on with the mansion. They're using her voice to answer the calls when she's not even there. She goes to investigate, sneaks in. Finds out what's going on. So this woman, Black Mamba, some call girl, that's a famous actress, codename Black Mamba. She's going off how she drugged Hercules. So Namor's got his divide and conquer plan going on. Undercover, Captain America is trying to steer Hercules away, and they get him inside the van. And he's still miffed on the Wrecker calling him out for being subservient to a woman. It's a typical Hercules. He just goes straight into the mansion to attack. He's all drugged up, though. Let's just say that. He's not a complete douchebag. But yeah, the guy he can be pretty obnoxious and boisterous at times, to the point where his hot-headedness can get the better of him. But yeah, this particular instance, he is completely drugged up and impulsive as hell. So he goes straight into the mansion, confronts Tiger Shark. Captain America gets captured and the Wasp get away. He's got to deal with Mr. Hyde and the Wrecking Crew, but really it's Goliath that takes him down. Showing blood on a panel. Not very often you see that. Look at it. They're all just laughing at him. Hercules manages to, after they give him the beat down, it's like he manages to just squirm away. Just barely makes his way through this force field, and he ends up in the hospital. Wow, nice condition. Beautiful copy here. Some Copper Age goodness. So that is cover date December 1986. These comics went for around $2 to $8. That includes shipping. One of these actually cost $28 total. It's this one right here. They're both 75 cents. Hercules is in the hospital, by the way. Titanium absorbing man. I think they pose as cops. Try to get to him. This is Scott Lang, Ant-Man, and Janet Van Dyne, Wasp. Team up to defend him. They're the only ones there at the hospital to protect Hercules. It's on the news now. The Avengers mansion is covered in this black cube. It's created by the black blob. Blackout. I mean, and this is also just a great depiction of Janet Van Dyne's leadership. Just what a badass she is. She doesn't fuck around with Absorbing Man, takes him out the second she gets to meet him in his human form. She doesn't hesitate. Captain Marvel trapped in the Dark Force. Zemo reminiscing on how Captain America, after killing his father, had ruined his family name and ruined his life, ruined his future. So this is his revenge. He wants to get personal. He doesn't want to just defeat Captain America. Monica Rambeau. Mark Jewelers, baby. Mark Jewelers insert. Military bases had these extra inserts. Only found on the bases, from what I hear. So, makes this newsstand copy extra rare. If you're going to get a newsstand and you want to be picky, and if it's not a Mark Jewelers, then make sure it's a Canadian price. This is a regular US price. But that is the next level. A newsstand that is either a Mark Jewelers or Canadian price variant. That is the uber rare comic you can get from Copper Age. So check it out. Titania and Ant-Man are taking out the Absorbing Man. They shrunk down Titania, and then the Wasp stung her. The Wasp comes in. She's all, oh no you don't. We went easy on you before, she says. Now that she's got him in his human form. She ain't messing around. So now we got Captain Marvel, right? She gets freed because the Shroud, street level hero, he works with the Dark Force like Cloak does. There's a scene in here where she kind of like pops out of him. Mr. Hyde, this is pretty gruesome. Issue 276 here. Mr. Hyde is essentially killing Jarvis. He ends up unconscious, but then he eventually dies right in front of Captain America. Zemo surmises whether he's able to make Captain America break or not. So Captain Marvel's able to free herself. Shroud is like, what the fuck just happened? Are we going out now? Dr. Druid, when he sees what happens on TV with the Avengers mansion encased in this black cube, all of a sudden he goes into a trance and finds out that the Black Knight is held captive. And he eventually uses his psychic powers to reach the Black Blob, Blackout. Because he's such a suggestive state, he's able to have Blackout turn off the force field later. So we got Thor, we got Captain Marvel teaming up with Scott Lang, Ant-Man, Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp with Dr. Druid, and the U.S. military. So they go in, there's a blackout. No pun intended. And the Black Knight recovers his sword, frees Captain America. Mr. Hyde, his weaknesses are weaponized toys you find in comic books. that you can turn into tranquilizers, or darkness. And the lack of light. Nice. Captain Marvel comes through, creates a hole in the ground, at which point the Wasp blinds Hyde, and then he runs into Thor. Done. What's left of Jarvis. This newsprint on these nice white pages just smells so good. Scent just brings back so many great memories. Looks like Moonstone got taken out so hard she falls into the side of that cliff. She gets crippled. Druid gets taken out momentarily after he subdues Blackout, but Zemo's prepping Blackout to send everybody to the Dark Dimension right here. Look at that image. Awesome drawing. Ominous. This guy whose mind's pretty much null and void. Aggravated expression on his face caused by Zemo. Because the Fixer, right? Because the Yellow Jacket and the Fixer are like the tech side of his team, of Zemo's group of villains. And the Fixer added this chip into his crown or headband, whatever you want to call that, to control Blackout's mind. All right, the final chapter in our adventure, Avengers 277, Under Siege in Final Battle. Let's take a look. I think you know what happens. Zemo's weakness is lack of balance, turns out. Look at this John Buscema drawing right here. I mean, just the background, like all the debris in there, he did not half-ass it. Thor taking out Goliath. I said this before, that would make a cool forearm tat, like right there. Oh yeah. Copper Age Storm, cool as shit. That's a Paul Smith drawing right there, Storm. So yeah, while this was going on, the X-Men had to deal with the Marauders, and then also the Fantastic Four were off in space because the Thing at the end of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, the first one, he decided to stay. Ben Grimm decided to stay on Battleworld. So then you've got issues of the Thing, and then Fantastic Four out in space, recovering Thing, getting him back to Earth. He was able to control when he could turn into the Thing on Battleworld, but then eventually he lost that ability and sought to return to Earth. So that's where the Fantastic Four are, and the X-Men, like I said, they're dealing with Mr. Sinister and his Marauders. Okay, so Blackout is resisting Zemo's mind control. Thanks to Dr. Druid. Fantastic illustrating going on. Thor's hammer nailing Goliath right in the forehead. Yeah, the new Yellow Jacket, she's just like, throws her helmet off. She's like, I know what I'm beat. It's all good. Arrest me. I think Moonstone ended up breaking her back in that fall, the battle that she had with Captain Marvel. So badass. She just melts Zemo's guns. Captain America's like, I got this. Y'all just step back and watch. Cap offers to give him a hand to help him out. And I think just the devastation of it all. It's a nice humanizing moment. Right? And what makes a hero? It's got that compassion, empathy, just that recognition of an aftershock. Such a huge traumatic event of watching Jarvis get tortured, his home getting broken into, total crazy home invasion situation going on here. Ends with him finding a photo of the only existing photo of his mother, torn up. Interesting conclusion to a superhero story. Thought it was really cool how they would throw in showing the leadership of the Wasp, showing in the beginning how Hercules got distracted by letting someone cut him down, make fun of him for letting a woman be a leader. But they didn't articulate everything exactly so much as they were just showing the consequences of his foolish behavior, him being taken advantage of. It wasn't in your face, but it made a great point. How to treat people with respect. Not all heroes are perfect. Yet Hercules' arrogance, as well as this very vulnerable moment of Captain America crying over a torn up photograph of his mother at the end, I find acceptable within the Marvel Universe. This goes beyond just how you have to portray a hero as having hangups. You can just show people as heroes, no matter how great they think they are, whether they're a Greek god or somebody that is just trying to be a great leader, like Captain America. They, at the core, are man, are human, fallible, not just open to the typical Marvel brand identity driven hangups. That's what was guiding Marvel in the late 80s and onward. But you have some character traits that can allow these people to be taken advantage of, to have the better gotten of them. But in the long run, right, the mettle of one's merit, one's character overcomes the evil, overcomes the obstacle, through perseverance, pushing on, teamwork, all that goodness that makes up a solid, hardcore American superhero team. That's what used to make Marvel more than just a regular comic book, a regular superhero comic book, right? To make it to the final battle. That human aspect, that tragic flaw, that's a form of entertainment, but it's also a message that, I don't know how to explain it, but that moral gratification, not necessarily an instant gratification of watching these heroes overcome their flaws. Not like Zemo. No, not like Zemo. Right? Instead of becoming the hero and overcoming, he had to put a chip in his headband, control people's minds, and manipulate people and take shortcuts. All he had to do was just change his last name and get over his dad, and probably would have been a pretty successful guy. Yo, I love this story. Avengers Under Siege. Just off the top of my head, I would have to say this is top three, right? Like right now, just off the top of my head, what are my top three Copper Age 80s Marvel stories? I would have to say Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, the X-Men, that whole Marauders attack. For some reason, I'm not getting the name of that storyline right now. That whole battle with the Marauders versus the Morlocks. And this. These three, I would have to say, are my, just off the top of my head right now, would have to be my three favorite storylines from Marvel Comics, Copper Age, 80s goodness. One more for you. Avengers 486. Somebody knew that there was going to be some changes going on with the Avengers when they made this comic. This is Jeff Johns. Sadowski's the artist. Don't know that name. Only reason I bought this is as a dirty old man. Because only collectible reason that you would want to buy this. See, when they originally sold this at Golden Age Collectibles in Pike Place Market in Seattle, they had a big bright pink sticker on it, on the bag that they kept each issue in. It said adults only. Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. All right, Jen, he says. Your turn. All right, then. We go from Roger Stern from the 80s to Marvel declaring bankruptcy, in 1995. And then, what is this? This is like cover date November, 2003? Wow, we're like already into new Marvel, but there wasn't a lot going on with like Iron Man or the Avengers. Thor had Ragnarok, that was just about to start, and then Bendis took over. I think maybe right after this issue. This is 486. No. Avengers Disassembled, which was like 495, 496. That's when everything started to change, when they shut down the Avengers by issue 504. That was the last issue of the original Avengers run. And at that same time, they started up New Avengers. So that whole new Marvel era that I praised didn't really include the Avengers. A lot of just, I think I was reading some Ultimates. That was my Avengers source during this time. Yeah, that was the only modernization that was going on with the Avengers was Mark Millar and Brian Hitch's Ultimates. That's what I was reading. I wasn't doing mainstream Avengers still. I tried reading some of it when New Avengers came out. Read the first 11, 12 issues, and then I was just like, I'm good. Yeah, I never read this, and I had no plan to ever read this. It was just like a whirlwind. Yeah, whirlwind. He's got history with the Wasp. I mean, this is already 2003, and it's pretty obvious they don't know what the hell they're doing. MGM Grand, so yeah, they're in Vegas. What happens in Vegas? Apparently this time, definitely not Copper Age Avengers right here. I find this to be legend. Check out your local comic book shop. Let me know how easy you think it is to find these in Near Mint, Very Fine Plus Near Mint, like myself. Because I didn't find it to be easy. I found it to be really easy to find these in the dollar bin, or to find them with blunt corners and a few spine ticks here and there, but to find them as sharp as these, just had to end up succumbing to buy them online still. Can't wait to start going to cons. Yeah, so this is the Alpha and the Omega, Chapter 1, Chapter 5. First and last chapters of this epic story by Roger Stern and John Buscema. Thank you so much for entering this little road down memory lane for me. Appreciate your feedback on this Copper Age goodness. And on that note, I need to get out. Ladies and gentlemen, it is October 7th. I got do not, right? That means do not. I'm reminding myself, tobacco, no tobacco, no tobacco. Today's October 7th. It's 10 months. No tobacco. Yes, I've been smoking weed like a motherfucker. I don't know, pretty much every day. Anyway, I got to get moving, but I also want to give a little shout out here to my friend Mr. Fred Hall, Direct Edition. Recently, he did a run of books. It was the Apocalypse, I think it was. Fred Hall Direct Edition recently did this video where he's did a rundown, a review, some X-Men comics that Apocalypse. I think it was the storyline where Sunfire was one of the Horsemen. Anyway, I left him a message letting him know that I think like 12 years ago, in January of 2010, I did this sketch. It's just from one of the panels of that story. I mentioned to Fred Hall. So Fred Hall, man, here's the drawing I mentioned that I made. I've been meaning to show this in the last couple haul vids. I just keep forgetting. So check it out. Apocalypse. Apocalypto. Melanie Gibson right there. That's Melanie Gibson. Apocalypto, yo. Shit, there he is. And on that note, thank you very much. That'll be that Sequential Geek. Thanks for viewing. Stay safe and peace out. Apocalypto.